This is Jamie Meyer, founder of Resilience for Life.
Harvey, welcome. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I know we're going to be talking a little bit about yoga and healing and your expertise, which I benefited from recently when I was recovering from a shoulder injury. But would you begin by introducing yourself and just telling us a little bit about your journey?
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Harvey Deutch. I'm a human being. I'm a physical therapist. I'm a yogi. I'm a dad. I'm a partner. I'm a lot of different things. At this stage in my life, I have combined so many of the things that I love doing, and specifically when it comes to, I'll call it work, I've combined my knowledge as a physical therapist with 40 years of experience now with my love and understanding of yoga. I started practicing yoga in physical therapy school about 44 years ago and always loved it. And about 20 years ago, I kind of combined the forces as a physical therapist and a yoga teacher to try to get that information out to people. And the journey and path it has taken me on, I had no idea that I'd be where I am today with it. So yeah, it's pretty amazing to be able to say to people, I love what I do, and every day I look forward to what the next chapter is going to be. So yeah.
I just bask in your positive energy. I have as a student, and I am just so blessed to recently have had the opportunity when I was discovering, much to my surprise, as a yogini and a yoga therapist, that something really wonky was going on with one of my shoulders, and I was really wondering during a shelter in place pandemic, what was really appropriate. And I think one of the blessings for me during this time has been having the opportunity to work with you and heal, and really just doing fabulously. So first, I want to thank you for just being there and being so wise and just astute, right on as to what was appropriate. Could you talk a little bit? One of the things that I found very humbling, just with my own studies and knowledge, is that assessment is such a key point, particularly with a complicated joint like the shoulder. And I was amazed at how effective it was working with you by distance like this. Could you talk a little bit about that and how you managed to do that work by distance so effectively?
It's, oh my goodness, such a different way for me to practice. My whole career, I've practiced one-on-one, mostly with people in my room, and evaluating them and putting my hands on them and then giving them some what I call tickets to paradise, things to help to heal. And now all of a sudden, I'm not in the room with them and people are still having problems. So what do? To give you some credit too, Jamie, you're somebody who's interested in this to start with, and you have a background to have a better understanding of it. So it made it easier to evaluate you, virtually, having you go through the tests and provide the manual resistance and look at the range of motion. So it's always better to do it in person, but we can't do that right now. So take you through the evaluation, look at your range, come up with a credible diagnosis. I always have to work off of a diagnosis. When a client comes to see me, I'll often start with, do you have a diagnosis? Have you seen a physician or a chiropractor or anybody in the medical world that has given you a diagnosis? So we treat the driver, right? The source of the problem, and not just treat the symptoms. Sometimes we need to treat the symptoms for pain relief so people can be comfortable. But if you keep just treating the symptoms and don't get to the source, then things don't resolve. So that's just what we did. You helped me with the evaluation and we came up with a diagnosis. And once you come up with the diagnosis, then you set your goals. You got your short-term goals and your long-term goals and some treatment ideas on how you can help to remedy it. So normally I put my hands on you, like I've already said, but I think I gave you some things to do, some things with trigger point work or using therapy balls or foam rollers or things to help to mobilize tissues and joints. So this is a new paradigm of practice for me. It's not what I would choose, but I've kind of embraced it and tried to run with it the best I can. And maybe we'll get to this a little later. What my future looks like now is
Yeah,
completely different than it was like 3 months ago.
I'm
So,
sure. I'm sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and I resonate to your saying how you prefer being in the room so you can, have your paws on people. And I can tell you, I don't think I ever told you this, but I tend to be in the back, sort of. I don't know why, but in your large classes, your very large classes, I would carve out a tiny little place in the back. But when you start walking around, I would always, to myself, I would say, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, let Harvey come to me today. Because, and I wasn't there.
I caught your eye when you would walk in the room. I knew you were there and I knew you were in your place. So I would make my way back there to try.
Well,
So, from the other side too, to be able to put your hands on somebody and what I call lines of intention, right? Not
yes,
adjusting you, but
right.
giving you a sensory input of, oh, this is the direction that I'd like to be heading into. So it's very rewarding for me too, to be able to give those light touches and see your bodies just kind of find their place. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, what a gift,
Yeah.
both as a teacher and as a student, to hear you clarify that lines of intention. I know I've used that in my own teaching, rather than this idea of moving people into some, preconceived idea, because we're not like that.
Totally.
We're all unique, and it's just such a beautiful learning for all of us. One of the
That, as
things,
well as I have to separate what I am as a physical therapist in my clinic versus as a yoga teacher. I'm not going to be mobilizing joints and adjusting spines during a yoga class. It's completely inappropriate. But you can do a light touch and kind of give that same idea of what we're trying to accomplish, so that the brain starts to figure out, oh, that's what he's talking about, or that's what the movement is that we're trying to facilitate.
yeah, I love that. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Would you talk a little bit about one of the things that was very helpful for me, when we were working together, therapeutically recently by distance, is distinguishing between the discomfort that was going to happen because I had something that was not working the way nature intended, and I had a problem, and that subsequent kind of stickiness and even a little bit of discomfort and potentially a little painful, but the difference between that and pain that is, say, inappropriate, that dance. I always find that a very interesting topic, both as a teacher, and here I was a student and a patient. So would you speak to that? Because I know many people have questions about that.
Yeah, we could do an entire talk on this for an hour. So
Yes.
just my quick snippet of it is for people to be able to discern the difference between pain and sensation. So I know that a lot of people don't know the difference, and they go to a yoga class or they do anything and they have sensations and they back off of it immediately because it, quote, hurts. Well, it doesn't really hurt, it's more just sensational. So some different ways to think about it would be, pain is something we want to pay attention to. And often I'll say to myself, if I'm in a pose or moving into a pose, if I could hold that pose for about 2 minutes with this sensation, then it's not pain. If I feel like I cannot stay here for 2 minutes, then it's probably something you want to back off of. On the other side, as a physical therapist, how I look at it or try to teach people is something called compression versus tensile limits.
Mm-hmm.
So a compression is something that you don't want to foster. A compression would be like if you have arthritis in your hips and you do a forward bend and it pinches,
Mm-hmm.
especially into the movement that you're doing. So if I'm doing a forward bend and my hips pinch in the front, that's compression, and that's not something you want to really push through. Versus if I do a forward bend and I feel more of a tension in my hamstrings or in my calves and a downward facing dog, that's tensile limits, that's sensational, and that's something
Mm-hmm.
that you do want to uh, move through. A great
Mm-hmm.
example would be your shoulder that was uh, injured, and you had kind of an impingement going on in the shoulder where the tendon was being pinched because the muscles weren't working like they should. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a great example of stay away from it while it pinches, but as your muscles got stronger and your joint was congruent and behaved more like it should, it didn't get pinched anymore, so you could move through the compression towards your healing. I know that's
Yeah.
a lot to try to absorb, but it's a hard thing to try to teach people, should I or shouldn't I? And what it
Mm-hmm.
really all comes down to is if your gut literally says, don't do this, don't do it,
Right. And
right?
yes, absolutely. And what was so helpful, though, what was distinctive about working with you, um, was knowing again the sensation that I was going to feel, that I should expect to feel as I was healing. But then there were a couple of things that I thought might be appropriate to do, and you said, no, 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 not yet, not yet. And so that was for me gold, because again, you could find any number of wonderful texts or videos by well-respected people, and if you don't have a specific diagnosis, however appropriate a movement may be, it may not be appropriate for you at that time. And so
Right,
that's what I was
exactly.
so appreciative for. I had the confidence and the trust that I could embrace the sensation and know that it was actually on the path to my healing, not doing more
Nice.
damage, if you will. Isn't
So
the
you're giving
idea
a
of
specific example there too, excuse me, about
sure?
inflammation. And many people think that they still have inflammation when they don't. It's gone into a chronic phase. But that's something to be very careful about when you are in an inflammatory state, especially at the start. That is not something you're going to push through. Inflammation is a space occupying thing, it's fluid. And if you're forcing movement against it or contracting a muscle and hence the tendon pulls onto the bone, you're going to make things worse. So if a resisted movement hurts, and yours did at the start, one of your shoulder movements, then we back off of that and let
Right.
supraspinatus
Yeah.
calm down a little bit before you strengthen it, and you would absolutely make it worse at the start. So
Right.
yes, being able to discern what those sensations are all about.
Yeah, I got very friendly with my ice popsicles.
Totally.
This is a
So I was going
great
to say
tip.
that
And
too, Jamie. That's the self-help stuff, right? To be able
yeah,
to work through this and manage it and not let it get past the point of no return
yeah,
while you're doing your rehab. You have to almost always expect some discomfort as we heal, but it's short term and should be managed through, ice and other
yeah,
means.
yeah. I want to share that fabulous tip you gave me. I sent my husband out to get the little plastic cups, that come in the
Uh-huh.
stack, and we filled them up, and then you just, take them out of the cup when they're frozen, or just push it up like a popsicle, and it becomes the greatest
Exactly.
thing. Yeah. And you
And
actually like that better than
it delivers the ice directly to where, or the cold directly where you want it to be. And it's really ice. It's not, like a fake pack that doesn't really get as cold as an ice
right.
cube actually would. So those little things sometimes mean a lot. You bet.
Yeah. um, One of the things we talked a little bit about was the kind of the sweetness of yoga and the importance of breath, particularly as you're distinguishing maybe in the stages of sensation and healing. Can you talk a little? I mean, breath is everything, right? That's another huge topic. But would you talk a little bit about that? Because I
Oh my
find it's
goodness.
common for people to not only not be aware of breath, but actually to hold the breath, particularly during
Yeah.
periods of injury or fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a whole little tingle go up my spine as you started to talk about that, just the idea of how many people really don't know about breath. And I had a flashback from one of my first classes in Vermont, where I went to college 40 something years ago, where at the end of the class, the yoga teacher said, okay, we're going to breathe now. And I remember saying, I'm out, get up, and walked out. It's like, she's going to teach me to breathe. I mean, I know how to breathe. What is she talking about? And the naivete, when I think about that now compared to what I do in my own life and what I try to teach, is outrageous. So you said it, the breath is everything. And really, all yoga is marrying breath with movement. It doesn't have to be an exact pose from, somebody's teacher. If you're moving and you're breathing, you're doing yoga. So you can't separate it out. We have to breathe in order to stay alive, but if you can captivate or capture your breath and cultivate the breath and movement kind of idea, that's where the healing all begins. Think about what we're doing when we're breathing, right? We're detoxifying as we breathe out, and we're bringing all the fresh oxygen, prana, life force into us to feed our cells. So if you can take more oxygen in by power of using your diaphragm and all the things that we know, and blow out all the exhaust, you're just purifying your system that much more. And the best benefit of all of it is when our mind goes to our breath, everything calms and we shift our perspectives and we change our whole trajectory on where we're going. So to be able to practice, whether you're doing yoga or the exercises that you're doing for a specific injury, it's the breath that is the most important component of all of it to calm the system and redirect the mind. That's the word I was looking for, redirecting towards that healing energy and focus.
Yeah, I think more than anything, I just had an image of like the ruby slippers. They're with us all the time, but it takes us home, and we have to remember. I mean, I forget. We still forget, even if we know. But it's truly the greatest treasure that we have, I think.
I always talk about keeping our yoga practice in our back pocket. I see that a lot. It's always with you. You just have to take it out and use it, no matter where you are. If you're sitting on a crazy bus somewhere or whatever it is, and you're trying to calm yourself, it's always with you. And then to get into movement and marrying the breath with the movement, it's just, there's no other way. So we can't take it for granted that that's something that everybody knows, because it's absolutely not. And I love to sneak it in there with people who are not yogis, just regular old PT clients of mine. And before they know it, they're doing yoga because they're breathing and they're moving. And we get lots of converts through that way. Like, oh, this is yoga? Everybody thinks, not everybody, lots of people think it's becoming a pretzel and being the bendy Wendy and being able to do all those crazy poses. That's not what yoga therapeutics is about. And you know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
It's not the poses so much. It's really the journey through it and discovering how our bodies work.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, thankfully, I haven't had a lot of PT experiences in my life, but I can. Well, now, of course, if I ever need one, I hope I can have the pleasure and the privilege of working with you. But I can't imagine a PT experience without the extra benefit of
Frankly, I
yoga.
can't either. But
Really?
I think, Jamie, that's what's going on with yoga therapeutics now. That was the birth of yoga therapeutics, kind of the marriage of, I'll say, PT and being an advanced yoga teacher. You have the tools. You're not going to be doing the mobilizations and the actual hands-on stuff as intricately as a physical therapist would, but you are introducing the yoga practice, the asana, as well as the history of yoga and all that entails into a holistic way to help somebody heal. And I have witnessed it at least 20 years now in combining the yoga and the physical therapy stuff. I've witnessed the profound effects that the two combined can unleash on somebody's healing if they want to learn and process it and learn how to basically heal from the inside out, right?
Yeah.
Nobody is ever going to help you heal more than yourself. And if somebody calls me a healer, it's very flattering, and I'm good at what I do, but I'm not the healer. You guys are the healers. I give you the tools and the wherewithal to discover that inner healer, if you will, but it's you that's going to make it successful or not.
Well, and the inspiration. I mean, you hold this beautiful space, Harvey, that just makes that possible. But
Thank you.
you're welcome. But yeah, I feel like PT is almost like the tip of the iceberg, and all the other stuff is like below, you know, and it's kind of that's where like the huge amount of transformation takes place that we don't see, like you say.
This can be done by almost anybody. You know, yoga therapeutics has not been around very long. I've been around a lot longer than yoga therapeutics, and I
Right.
saw the handwriting on the wall years ago and kind of developed my own style in teaching these yoga therapeutic classes, and then developing all the trainings that I've done for the last 10 years, just pulled from my PT background and from my yoga experience, coming up with a curriculum that seems to work really well, teaching people the systems of the body, circulatory system and respiratory system, musculoskeletal system, all of them, teaching them separately, but then learning how they are all so combined and regulated by each other. And that's what yoga is all about too. When we're moving, it's not just our bodies, but we're stimulating the nervous system and the endocrine system and the whole thing that works as one big, beautiful unit. But learning it separately, but learning how those pieces are, you know, intimately connected.
Thank you.
And that's something that classic physical therapy school doesn't teach, or it didn't anyway. Maybe it's better now, but it's much more nuts and bolts, and here's the anatomy, and it's up to us as PTs to try to develop our own, you know, expertise. And honestly, it's just experience is the best way to get this, and working on thousands of bodies and seeing the differences and palpating the differences and coming up with your own treatment ideas. And you know, if one thing doesn't work, then try something else.
Right. And I mean, just to emphasize though, the credentials you have give you certain cred in the medical world, that even though yoga therapeutics is certainly now regarded, respected, there's more and more research, and it's a very burgeoning field. But there still is that space, you know, between yoga therapeutics and having the appropriate scope of practice, which is why, again, coming to you was such a gift for me. So.
And I didn't know it then, but when I was a kid and went to PT school when I was 17, I knew I needed to get a medical license so that I would be accepted by insurance companies and all that stuff. And I know so many talented people that are massage therapists and, you know, other body workers that don't have a medical license and are looked down upon by insurance companies and other things too. And that's just crap. And even in my own profession, I just have a Bachelor of Science in Physical Therapy. That's it, a 4-year thing. And there's all these doctorates now. Like I said before, it's really experience that is worth so much more than, you know, advanced degrees sometimes. And not always, of course, but somebody with 40 years of experience versus a doctorate in physical therapy that just came out last year, I think there's going to be quite a difference in how we practice.
Yeah. Good point. Harvey, are there any injuries that wouldn't be appropriate for distance sessions?
That's an interesting one. I have been working with folks now for about 3 months or so, and most things are pretty visible to me anyway. It's more that I can't really correct it once I see it. So if I see somebody's got a pelvic imbalance or they've got a sacroiliac joint or something that's out, I want to reach through and try to correct it, but I can't. And so many of my sweet clients are like, just reach through and touch it right there. If you could just get that, that would feel really good. So that's definitely a limitation. And if somebody has neurological things going on, or I suspect they do, I've told several of them, you should go see your physician right now because this doesn't look like, you know, something that's so good here. You should probably get that checked out. So there definitely are limits. I can't feel the tissues, that kind of stuff, but in
you
my
know,
regular scope of who I see, I would say not so much. But again, the folks that I do see, just they miss the manual therapy and the human touch, and that is never going to be replaced virtually, but we're doing the best we can under these crazy circumstances, right?
I was thinking how lucky I am to have been in your classes and have had your hands on me when I was doing an asana, because now when I do my exercises, which I do, as I will continue for my shoulder, and I do the extended, you know, child's pose, and you said, now just imagine my hand on that shoulder, and I do, every time I do it, I think of that. And again, that's that connection.
The sensory aspect is so important, isn't it?
Yes.
Where, I mean, ask most people where their shoulder is and they have a vague idea, but they don't know exactly where the, you know, the humeral head is, all that kind of stuff. And that's what I was saying before about practicing from the inside out. It's a world of difference if you know how the pieces fit together and what's supposed to move and what's not supposed to move. That's the crux of functional anatomy, Jamie, versus just anatomy.
Right.
You can be studying anatomy forever from the books, and I think that's what turns people off. It's kind of boring, some of it, and it's just a lot. It's memory. Versus functional anatomy is, how do we actually move? What does a facet joint do in the thoracic spine that it doesn't do in the lumbar spine? And to me, oh my God, those are the pearls of wisdom. That's the, I know what's supposed to move and I know what's not supposed to move. So, you know, as I get older, I am still pretty much keeping this body together and don't have any major limitations that prevents me from doing anything that I want to do physically in this world. And oh my goodness, I want to hold on to that for the rest of my life. Right? How many people do we hear like, oh, I can't do that, my back or my knee won't tolerate that, or there's so much stuff.
Being embodied is such a gift, right?
We have to put forth the effort though, right?
Oh yes,
you have to get into your regular practice, and it should be more like, I know this is going to make me feel good if I do a hamstring frisk at a wall after I've just walked 2 miles, versus blowing it off and saying, my back kind of hurts right now, but I'll deal with it later. No, you won't. And that's when it goes too far.
Right. Right. It's such a treasure, like you said. I mean, yes. As long as I'm embodied, I want to be able to use all of it. Right.
I think it's not for everyone. I think not everybody is so interested in this like we are. And that's, it's not judging it or anything, but I kind of look at people often and say, well, what do you expect? You know, if you haven't done anything to help yourself, then this is what's going to end up happening to your body. And we've all seen, not even so much older folks, but some older folks like around a pool or something like that. My goodness, what has happened to their skeleton? They have just fallen into it. And that's when life seems a little less fun to be around for, when you're not so functional and things start to degrade. And, you know, you used to travel the world, and then you travel the States, and then you travel your city, and then you'd never leave your house. And before you know it, you're homebound. And I'm not going to ever let that happen. And I love to teach people how to prevent it happening for them too. And some of the things that I teach in my retreats, I call it tickets to paradise. Here are your tickets. Get on the train. I've given you your tickets. Go do them. And if you don't, then you've got nobody else to blame but yourself, right? It's kind of harsh words, but you can't, you know, lead a horse to water, but that old saying, you know, it's up to you to drink it.
We all have personal responsibility for sure. But you make it so much fun too. So
I
that's a big,
try, but
yeah, that's a
to
big
be a
part of it.
cheerleader all the time and a motivator is exhausting, and some people you can't.
Right,
So if
right.
after a few attempts they don't look like they're going to take the bait, then I'm off. I'm not going to,
I get it.
continue it. But
It's
for the
not your
people who
job.
love it,
Yeah,
it's our sangha, our group, our
right.
bandwagon that we're on. Everybody's got that same kind of, yes, let's
Yeah,
take care of ourselves and of each other, right? The whole
yeah,
community kind of watching out for each other.
right. Well,
Yeah.
we're almost at the end of our time, but I just wanted to mention during these months, thousands have attended your therapeutic yoga
Yeah.
classes from all over the world.
Amazing.
And they're on YouTube. You post them on YouTube. So would you just tell us what the channel is, because that's just an
Sure.
amazing place.
Sure. I never thought I would teach virtually. I put up a big fight, and a good friend of mine said, just do it. And I did one of them. And the first one, there was 150 people that were on, and like, okay, I guess this is going to go. So every Sunday, California time, I teach live from 11 to 12:30 on Harvey Deutch Yoga is the name of the Instagram account, and you can find all the information on there. My
Okay.
website is Red Hawk Physical Therapy or redhawkpt.com. Either one will get you there. And all the links and stuff are available on that. I also teach on Tuesday, Thursday mornings right now through Yoga Tree. You can find me that way as well. I'm not sure what's going to end up happening, but I'm on this for now. And real quickly, I just wanted to mention what's come out of this for me. I have a gentleman that just came to Michigan, where I happen to be at the moment. He wants to spend 2 weeks with me. He's like, I don't have any other time I'm going to be able to do this, and neither do I. He flew out here from California, and he's quarantining for 14 days. And then we're going to spend 2 weeks together, like a personal retreat. So I'll see him
Wow.
every day. We'll do body work. We'll do yoga. We'll take walks to the beach. We'll go to the lake. He'll help me in my garden. So out of this was born now.
Wow.
Just why not? You know,
Okay.
if you can make it happen, why not? So this is my next
Okay.
thing that I'm doing. Yeah.
Sign me up for that.
Okay, honey.
Harvey, but you still work by distance, or do you? Do you
I
still?
do.
Okay.
I
And
see
it looks
patients
like,
on Mondays.
okay.
If anybody's interested in that, my website is not website, the email would be
Okay.
redhawkappointments@gmail.com.
All
If
right.
anybody's interested, and we can
Yeah.
set up some
I'll
time.
include it on the video so that people can see
Sounds
that
great.
visually.
That's great.
Harvey, thank you so much.
My pleasure. I
Before
hope
we,
people are inspired to find a yoga practice that works for them, and it doesn't have to be all fancy and all that,
Mhm.
but to identify what needs your body has and develop your own tickets to paradise and take really good care of yourself, like you are and like I am. Everybody can do that, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
touched by, before we wrap, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I always read the emails that you write before the link to your video. Once you sign up, you get these wonderful emails, which I appreciate. Any just little tidbit or a few words of positivity at this time? I know it's a tough time for people, and your emails always touch my heart.
Thank you. This has been a time for me too to get in touch with that and give people a sense of what's in my brain. What I miss most is the human touch, and it's definitely a big deficit in my life now. So positivity, what I think of, this is going to end. And as I sat in this same chair months ago and it was snowing outside, I had this image of one of those snow globe things, right, that you turn upside down and
Mhm.
then it lands. And again, I'm getting a tingle. I think that's what's happening to us right now, that
Yeah.
we've just been shook up. I
Mhm.
think in a good way too, to bring people's awareness to some of the awfulness going on in our country and in the world. Step back and look at your part in it and make some changes. And if everybody does that for the better, oh my goodness, this will be so much better place to be. And I think those would be my words of encouragement. Shake it up. It's not going to ever be the same, and that's good. Let's make it something better than it ever was before.
Beautiful. Harvey, you're
Yeah.
such a blessing. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sweetheart.